you and we believe you. Hello, everyone. Welcome, 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 welcome. This Saturday afternoon. How is everyone doing? Sandy, haven't seen you in a while. How was your trip? Shannon, great to see you. Deirdre Gore, how much more before you move? Lacey, good to see you. Misha, I think this is the first time I've actually gotten the entire intro played on the live. So if you go on replay, you'll actually see the entire intro. So very excited. Love that. Archie's mom, hello, hello. Haven't seen you in a while. So glad you guys could make it. Todd is here. Matrix Rabbit is doing a wrench today. Misha, I'm not sure how much wrenching she's going to do, but she is here as well. And yes, it's a very cool intro, isn't it? I love it. I absolutely love it. Kevin Hawthorne, you are a new one for me. Welcome. 7th. Very good to see you today. How is everyone's doing? You got sick, Sandy? Ugh. I know so many people have gotten sick lately. It's my allergies are kicking my butt. I tell you. And when cottonwoods start to blow, I'm in real trouble. You like the intro, Shannon? Every time I play it, then I start singing along too. It's so catchy. She did such a wonderful job. Miss Dragon, so wonderful to see you. Glad you are here. So I don't know if anybody saw, you have 3 more months, Deirdre? Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. Rich, so good. Chilling on a date. Oh, wow. Look at that. Over 5,000 days, clean and grateful, playing guitar. The song stays in your head all the time, Misha? It doesn't mind. Miss Christmas and Layla. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm trying to see, supposedly, if I go here on the lifeboat, I can see any chats that are going over there, because I do have my other. Oh, you guys are, they're feeding into here. So I don't have to look at them. That is cool. Spanx, I don't know if you're still in the back, but it looks like, yeah, all of the lifeboat chat is feeding right into my chat and everyone's together. So, hey, this works perfect. All of the lifeboat chat is in my chat. It's blended right together. So I don't know if that's supposed to do it that well, but it, yeah, I'm rippling. You wonder why I was, yeah, we didn't know it would work this way. I thought I would just be looking at the lifeboat screen, the lifeboat chat, and just kind of, talking through that as well. But it seems everybody is coming over here. Hi from New York, V Bombs. Where in New York? I lived in upstate New York, Rochester area for a long, long, long time. I shouldn't say that. Well, 8 years. That was a good portion of my youth. To me, that was a huge amount of time. All right. So if you were here on Wednesday, you would have noticed that I've changed what we were going to talk about a little bit. And that was because of a couple conversations I had this week. Originally, I was going to talk about love bombing and predatory online dating, which is still in the works to talk about. But I got a lot more questions on grooming. And last Saturday, we did kind of just basic grooming. What are the stages? And we talked a little bit about education and a little bit about identification. And it was just kind of little bits here and there. And I wanted to put things together more. And I know this is a subject we're going to be coming back to again and again and again. Some people I know who've got kind of the finger dialed in on the younger crowd. This is a pretty big topic amongst them right now. Excuse me, my eye. I was going to try my new contacts with you guys today, but I chickened out. I didn't know how well I was going to be able to see everything. So I figured I'll do that when I'm just like not on here. Yes, guys, I keep meaning to do that as my last things. Thank you so much, Misha. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Last video we had over 100 people watch it, but I only had like 20 people like it. No unlikes, no thumbs down so far. Woohoo! So batting 100 on that. But please, if you guys can hit that like button and check your subscribes just to make sure that you're still subscribed and that your bell for notifications is still on all, because I notice mine sometimes kind of goes down to personalized, and I don't have anything personalized, so I never get any notifications. So Itzy, oh, you're on Long Island. Wonderful. I've only been there once when I visited New York with a friend of mine. How was your Izzy, were you grilling today? Did I hear you were having a barbecue? I think that is wonderful. Yeah, unfortunately, the algorithm does, I guess it doesn't care whether or not you've gotten an up or a down thumb. It just wants to have a thumb to its way of seeing the views. If you click on it and it's got a view it counts towards it, I guess, as well. But apparently the comments afterwards really mean something. So any of you guys who watching on replay, if you could throw up a comment. If you're watching live, you have to wait for about a minute after the live stream ends and then go into the YouTube and comment section, and it'll pull up and you can actually leave a comment. I've noticed that there's somewhat of a delay there. Your hair still smells like fire and flavor. That is the best smell next to bacon, is my opinion. Really, seriously. Since we are simulcasting, I do want to go over. Misha has put up a little bit of a warning here. In my description, I have our standard trigger warning, and it will always be on every single video that we're doing something sensitive on, that we're talking about sexual assault. If we're not going to be talking, if I'm just going to be talking stats or some things like that, I will note that. But certainly, please take care of yourself. If any of this information is triggering and you need to step away, do. If you need to watch this in bite-sized pieces, do. If you can't watch it, that's okay. Catch us on the next one. Not everyone's going to be able to go through every video, and I completely understand that. And if anything has been real triggering and you need to speak with somebody, please feel free. You can email me, survivingtogether, @gmail.com. This is the SAS community. We've decided on that. Thank you, Janet G, for naming that. We had to have something on Surviving Together. It didn't work. Somebody else had regular Surviving Together. So SAS it is. So we are the SAS community. Welcome to the SAS community. I think that's what I'm going to start things with from now on. Welcome to the SAS community. Welcome to Surviving Together. Welcome to my still unhung paintings behind me. Oh, I'm going to get them eventually. I do want to go over the rules real quick. I really don't have very many rules. I swear, I don't expect you guys to completely not swear. If you do, I'm not really worried about it. Most of you guys have been doing this enough that you've been on other channels and you're completely, good in terms of your comments. But there's no bullying. There's no negativity here. You can state your opinion, but it's stating it only. You may not attack anybody else. You get one warning and then you're booted. That's it. I will not tolerate it. Most of us have gone through enough in our lives, and we don't need to put up with the negativity, any of the toxicity. So no religion talk, no politics talk. By that, I mean, not just mentioning something, did you see a headline or something, but, we're not going to get into any of the basics of it unless there's a conversation about abuse in the churches. And that would be with different religions. And again, it would be about the abuse. It's not about the religion itself. Lastly, and I understand this sounds a little bit like an oxymoron, but please, we do take confidentiality seriously here on this channel. Everybody in this community shares because they want to, and they're sharing out of their hearts, but it's still their story. And you can share the video, and somebody can watch. But I wouldn't go around just saying other people's stories. Can you believe so and so said she was a so and so? If you are mentioning a story for a particular reason, you can leave the person's name out unless you have permission. All right. Um, Mine is obviously out there in 3 different videos, and I talk about it all the time. Feel free to quote me. But your fellow people in the SAS community, have a kind heart and just be careful, because not everybody is willing to share with the greater YouTube world. We're still a pretty small community here. All right, I think that's housekeeping, except, well, if you notice on screen, my name is Mac. So you'll also notice some people will say Sharon because that is my actual name. But we have Sharon's and Shannon's in the chat, and it gets a little confusing. So we decided just to go with my nickname. So here I'm Mac. You may call me Mac. You may call me Sharon outside of my channel. I don't care. People use both. But here, if you need me, just say question, comment, or put Mac in capital letters. That way I know you're speaking to me and not somebody else in the chat. All right. Anything else before? You're Veronica V-Bombs. Thank you for listening and letting me know that. Okay, so what are we going to do today that we didn't do last Saturday? Well, we're just going to talk about all this again. We've got some new people here, and some of the aspects it's been a while since we've gone over. And so let's put it all together. If anybody has anything to add, I'll be trying to look at the comments. Not as great at that, but I'm trying. Archie's mom is Nikki. Guys, you're going to have to remind me of these, but I will get it eventually. I swear to goodness. Zelda, welcome. SB, I see somebody. Oh, there you are. Hello. Mock. I never know how to say your name. Mock. There's got to be something else with it. I'm just going to go mock. How about that? I can do mock. And anybody else that I missed. Oh, hey, Sue. How are you? Welcome, welcome. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about grooming. We're talking about child grooming. So specifically, we're talking about people under the age of 18. When I speak of children, that's what we're going for. Anyone under the age of 18. What is grooming? Well, grooming is a pattern of behaviors that someone will go through in an effort to gain the trust of a child for the purposes of sexual stimulation or sexual gratification. That is really their ultimate goal. The power and control that comes with that, I should say. Because what is sexual assault about? Is it about sex? No, it's not. It's about power and control. The sex is a secondary thing, and they're using it as a method of power and control. And it's very effective because it's still a very taboo subject. Sex is not something that is openly talked about in most countries. And if we're going to be normalizing this conversation, if we're going to be, driving this stigma into the dirt, conversations about sex have to be had as well. Because our kids need to understand, what are we talking about? What are we warning them against? And if they don't have the language and they don't know how to talk to you, or they don't know what might happen, it's going to be really difficult for them to say anything when the time comes. So what's most important with child grooming? Well, it all is, but I want to tell you this. 75% of people who have disclosed that they have been SA'd in their life, 75% of them, it was under the age of 18. Think about that stat for a minute. Of everybody who has said they have been SA'd as an adult or as a child, 75% of them identify that they have had an assault when they were a child. That's huge. Now, who can groom? Anybody. It's the same as a sexual assault. Anybody can be a victim and anyone can be a perpetrator. And most of the time, they're not going to look like the boogeyman. They look like you and me. Over 95% of the time, it's somebody who is known to the victim. And if you wonder why I say victim sometimes and survivor sometimes, when I'm speaking about right at the time of the act, I'm speaking about a victim. When I'm speaking about somebody who has gone beyond this, they are a survivor. So that's kind of the way the distinction that I make, if you're wondering why I'm using two different terms. So 95% of the kids know their abusers. Vast majority of it, the percentage is either a family, friend, or acquaintance, or somebody outside the nuclear family, a relative outside the nuclear family, or somebody else that is known to the family. So not just a friend or acquaintance. I kind of put these people into the all the coaches and stuff. So they're known to the family, but they're not, close to them. They're not a friend. They're not an acquaintance. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a breakdown as to where the numbers are. Now, again, please always take any numbers I give you with a grain of salt and any numbers that you read. It is notoriously difficult to do studies in regards to this because A, you're relying on people self-disclosure, and B, the only way you have to measure is when people do disclose. So it's extremely difficult to get actual numbers. If you look at some of the studies, our numbers have been going up, 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 up in regards to child sexual abuse. Kind of makes sense, especially if we've been, hammering home on this disclose, tell somebody, right? So it makes sense that our numbers are going up. Does that mean the actual incidents of child sexual abuse are going up? Probably not. Now, there is one area where it has been growing, and that has been child on child, or I'll say young adult. So the 18 to 22 crowd as well, or the older children. And by older children, I mean 15 to 18. So that bracket of children's ages, of young adults ages, the 15 to 22, has been growing as perpetrators. Now, there's a lot of different ideas as to why this is. One of the most is the availability of online images. It's easier to send them. It's easier to get them, whether that's child pornography or whether that's just regular pornography. And it's easier just to be speaking with somebody, through all of this internet interaction. For one, at first, you may not know who you're speaking with. You think you're speaking with somebody who's 13 and you're actually speaking with somebody who's 22. So the online predators, just in terms of online abuse, that's going to be another whole separate video, as is child on child. We keep mentioning it and we keep talking about it, and I have not done a specific video of child on child. Really, that's the next place I'm going. And I've got so many subjects still to talk about, you guys. So many. So I have to remind myself that I only started this channel in February and I do have a full-time job, so I can't do everything all at once. But just know I've got so many ideas as to where I want to take this and information I want to get out to you and to the greater communities. The instances of women being perpetrators has been growing a little bit. But again, we think that that's because of the disclosure aspect. And it's not necessarily that it's been women on boys only, it's been women on girls as well. But your vast majority, I mean, vast majority, at least, of the disclosed abuse cases, I think it was over 97%, something like that, 98% were male. So if I speak about guys mostly, it's just because that's where the percentages lie. However, please, I am never discounting the female perpetrators because they are there. And they are there for children, and they are there for adults. And that's a subject I'm going to come back to, is female perpetrators. Because I think that there's a little bit different of psyche that goes on with female perpetrators versus male perpetrators. So I do want to deal with that. And so I'm never discounting them at all. And this is partially true, Deaudre Gore. She's saying most adults don't notice, and that's because the perp is making very sure that they don't. And they're very good at it. They have to be. They're master manipulators. And by going through this step by step, what I hope you get out of this is more a greater awareness of the behaviors that you would need to look for. Ways of speaking to your children, to your nieces, to your grandchildren about this and about what they should be looking for. And then tell your friends, educate them, because really everybody needs to know. Society needs to be educated. You know, we often go back to, I move in someplace and I just have moved in someplace. I'm not introducing myself to my neighbors anymore. There is no, it takes a village. There is no, raising the next door neighbor's kid. However, if we are going to make any inroads in abuse in general, all types of abuse, we have got to be our brother's keeper. We've got to be keeping an eye out for the children, for all of the children. And it is our responsibility. If you see something, say something. It might not turn out to be anything, but at least you've raised the alarm. You've raised a red flag. And be careful with that. What you don't want to do is accuse somebody of something that you don't have very good facts on. You've seen some things and they give you the creeps, they alarm you a little bit. You don't want to jump to conclusions. But you do want to speak to people who then can give you an idea as to, am I right here? Is there something more I need to be looking at? If it's something that involves like a coach or somebody attendant to the school, you can ask other people who are around them. It's just we have to keep our eyes open. You've got to be looking out for your kids and others' kids. And the wonderful thing that has started that I think the Generation Z definitely has is the kids are looking out for the kids. At least the young adults that I see now, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, they're watching out for each other. And if they're talking to somebody and they talk to their friend, the friend's like, hey, that guy sounded like a creep, or that sounds too good to be true. You might want to, check that. That's what we need to be doing. But we can't leave it to the kids. It's not only their responsibility. Now, the vast majority of perpetrators are going to be younger versus older. Now, what do we mean by younger? I can only say probably under 30, under 40, somewhere in there. But it depends. Again, very, very hard to get statistics. I'm going to speak a little bit more about disclosure afterwards, or it might be part and parcel with what we're going to be discussing with the grooming. Most children, if they disclose at all, do not disclose for at least 5 to 15 years. At least. Okay. The average age of disclosure is in your early 50s. 50, 51, 52, that sort of age for a first time disclosure. And usually it's to a friend or a loved one. And one of the other numbers that struck me was when there was first disclosure, say within that first year, the incidences of who the child told, most often it was a friend or a brother or sister. It was another child. It was somebody under 18. And that's why it's so important that we talk to our children about this and educating them not only in what to look for people grooming them or grooming their friends, but what to do. If their friend comes to them and says, hey, my stepdad's doing this, what do you do? What do you say? What's the right thing? It puts the friend in a difficult position if they have no idea what to do, right? They go to their parent who's not sympathetic, and it can just create a huge mess. So by educating the children as well, not only in what to look for, but in what to do, it's really, really critical. Janet says her daughters are 25. She's got twins, guys. So very different from previous generations, inclusive, less judgmental, more aware, more open to talk about issues. Yeah, I've definitely found that. So that's going to be, what generation are they? I get mixed up. Are they still Gen Z or are they millennials? I don't know. We didn't have a Gen Y, did we? I think we skipped over that. Absolutely. And this is one of the things we're going to be speaking about in terms of how do you identify somebody who is being groomed or is being abused. Because there are certain behaviors that are just very commonplace. But it means you have to know your child. You have to know what is normal from what is abnormal for them. And that also means being an active participant in their lives. And not every kid gets that. There's a huge, huge percentage of the studies that they've done have looked at the underlying issues for these children. And neglect is a huge one. They don't have that nuclear support system. And that makes it a lot easier for perpetrators to hone in and focus and groom somebody, because they can be that helpful person helping that single mom out or helping that single dad, babysitting, doing whatever it takes to help, to be seen as good. So let's just talk about grooming in general, and then we'll get to some of those other specifics. So overall, what are your steps in grooming? Different people break it down differently, but here's kind of your generalization. 1, you've got identification of the victim. Then the perpetrator is going to try to gain the trust of not only the child, but the family. That is most important for them, because when you have the buy-in of the family, the kids kind of just go along with it. 3rd is fostering dependence. You want that child to become dependent on you for something. Is it an emotional need? Is it a physical need? Is it a tangible something that they don't get in their life? So they're going to foster dependence somehow. Next is going to come pushing boundaries. Pushing boundaries, trying to normalize sex, normalizing sexual acts. Because there will be times where perpetrators will give up on a particular victim if their boundaries are not willing to be pushed, if they're, okay, I trust you, but no, you're not doing that to me. Yeah, I'm not willing to have that boundary pushed. I know that that's my boundary and it's not going anywhere. So they'll try for a child that's easier to push those boundaries, right? Secrecy and isolation is kind of the next step. Children know that they can't tell anybody. It's a secret. They also can physically isolate them in order to be able to abuse them. So separating them from the family, separating them from the rest of the group, whatever dynamic that is that they're a leader of potentially. And the last is control. They need, in order to maintain the situation, they have to have control over that child and control over the situation. And that's really what gets them off, guys. It's power, it's control, it's being able to do this. And it's just, it is, Michelle. It is so hard as a parent. You are right to keep an eye on everything, raising kids, holding down a job, paying bills, going to college, trying to build ourselves up. You're expected to do it all. It makes easy prey. It 100% does. And that's where I certainly don't want to tell you to be, suspicious of everybody who offers to do nice things for you. But it's just being aware. Trust your intuition, trust your gut. If you get that weird tingly kind of feeling and you're like, this just doesn't seem right, those red flags, pay attention to them. You get more than one red flag and, okay, you really need to look at the situation and analyze it. One of the biggest things besides trusting your gut, and this is for the adults and for the children, because both of you, in regards to looking at stuff, need to trust your gut. So many times we try to logic away what we're feeling, what we're thinking. And the perpetrators are really great at this as well, helping us doubt our own reality. And you need to be very certain as to who you are in regards to having those boundaries pushed and being malleable. The more you know yourself, the less likely you are to be a victim. And I say that because in a grooming circumstance, pushing those boundaries, if you don't know who you are, if you don't know where your boundaries stand, if you haven't thought about these things, it's going to be a lot easier to push them because it's not solid. So helping your kids understand themselves, helping your kids, supporting your kids that it's okay to say no to people touching them, to people interacting with them in a certain way. They have to know where their boundaries stand and that it's okay that they stand. Just because somebody is an adult and is asking them something or telling them something, it doesn't have to change what they believe their reality is. And they can say no. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely grew up in the you listen to the adult in the room type of thing. So that could be really difficult if you were at somebody else's house and they were telling you one thing and at your house, that's not something that would fly, or vice versa. That can be very, very difficult. Yes, raising kids, it's one of the best thankless jobs. Isn't that what they say? Tara, we're glad you're listening anyway. And again, if you If you need to step aside, please, please do. Okay, so let's talk a little bit individually about these steps. Identifying a victim. Who is the perpetrator going to identify? Potentially any gender, any sexual orientation, any age, any socioeconomic background, any race. It does not matter. If you are part of their target population, then they're going to go after you. Now, there are some commonalities amongst people who are targeted the most for grooming. And these are our shy kids, our vulnerable kids, ones who have just moved someplace and they don't know anybody, ones who are introverts, people who are outcast for whatever reason, loners. Anything that is separating them from the group, because most often there's something that the groomer can give that child to make them feel better, to make them feel more whole. And a lot of times that's an emotional connection. And depending on their monetary standpoint, it can be physical as well, just in terms of giving gifts and things like that. Yeah, family does not always equal safe. It's true. It is true. And where you have the biggest groupings of kids, churches, different groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any other, Little League coach, sports coaches, all of that sort of thing. Anywhere where kids gather, that's generally where you're going to find a perpetrator. So somebody was speaking the other day of seeing someone at the public park taking pictures of other children. Didn't have a grandchild there or anything, just taking pictures of other kids. Well, if you're putting together an expose or a gallery thing and it's, the youth of America or something like that, you might have a little bit of a reason for. Otherwise, most people in general aren't taking pictures of other people's children. Just not happening. So you are okay to be suspicious in that circumstance. Let me look back and see if there's anything else in regarding to anything identifying a victim I wanted to talk to you guys about. Nope. You would also think that the younger the better, just because they don't know any different. And it's not the case. Perpetrators have a particular age bracket that they're interested in, and they rarely go outside of that. Now, there are some that do. There are some that seem to not even possess a particular type or a particular gender, but most have a grouping that they're interested in. And it's 6 to 13 seems to kind of be the real common age, 7 to 12, somewhere in there, of where most youth fall as to their age is when they were abused, at least when the abuse was started. Yeah, you're right. It's better to be rude than to take chances, because you don't know. And if that person was really doing it for pure purposes, when they talk to you, it's going to sound that way. I just believe that there's just no way of explaining that out if you don't have a pure purpose for it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. And hopefully that person would say, you know what? I'm glad you checked. I'm glad you checked with me to make sure. You didn't know it, but that's my grandniece over there. I'm just in for the day. So I'm trying to get a picture of her. Fine. But yeah, definitely always keep your eyes open. So that's really it with identification. And once they've identified who they want, there's trust. Then the interaction starts. In terms of the grooming, the ramping up. So it's building trust, especially with the family, doing stuff for the family, doing stuff for the parents, doing stuff for their older siblings, being involved somehow, wanting to be that person that the neighborhood would go, no, not them. We trust them so much. A wolf in sheep's clothing. They look like everybody else, guys. So pay attention. Is somebody paying extra attention to your child? Is somebody kind of out of the blue offering more help than they normally have for no apparent reason other than just to be helpful? Now, hopefully, hey, if it's your nephew or whatever, hopefully they just want to be helpful. They're realizing the importance of family. Great. But if they're also targeting, if they're also maybe talking to one of your children more, or has a little extra gift for that child, you'll notice there will be an extra focus. And sometimes it's just staring. They're watching TV with somebody and they're staring at the child and the child's staring at the TV. And so you notice these things. When they stare at the child, where are they staring? You know, you can get a sense as to whether somebody's just looking at a kid or whether they're really looking at a kid. So again, being aware, but that takes knowing our kids. It takes being involved in our kids' lives, and things are hectic. So accept help where you need it, but keep your radar on. And if those red flags start going off, then you would cut contact with that person. And you always want to speak with your child too. Is this person making you uncomfortable? Have they said anything to you? Have they done anything in particular for you that they didn't do for the other kids? You know, these are types of questions that you can be asking a child before you have gone and done anything else. But you always, always want to be asking open-ended questions. I think it's wise for every parent to at least watch a course of forensic interviewing, because what you don't want to do is, if you do end up having a case where your child was groomed and there is assault going on, you don't want your questions to have placed ideas into their heads to where somebody could argue that they made something up. So always just very open-ended questions, letting your kid fill things in. Shire Kitty, welcome, welcome, welcome. Tara, Tampa City said Tampa B man, welcome. Take a break here real quick and just see if there's anybody else that I need to say hi to. Okay. So those are things with trust building that you need to be watching for. And it's anybody who's involved in your life and involved in your kids' lives. Fostering dependence. And please note that all these steps don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. They can kind of be jumbled around in there, and they can be doing parts of several at one at a time. They can be doing several all at once. So it's not like, okay, I've gained all the trust. Now I'm going to do dependence. A lot of times gaining the trust, making them dependent, and pushing boundaries are all going to be clustered together, because normalizing sex, pushing those boundaries, often is going to start very, very small. A hand on the shoulder, touch on the back of the head, a brush down the arm, just getting them used to your touch. And it can be very, very incremental. Keep in mind, guys, as well, grooming can happen in the course of a few hours. Just because we're talking about grooming and I'm speaking of it kind of in the general sense of where it may take a few weeks, maybe it's going to take a few months, but it can happen in a very short period of time. So it doesn't have to be something that's long and drawn out. So it's another thing that your kids and you need to be aware of, that things can, boom, kind of just go all at once. Now, what are we talking about when we're talking about fostering dependence? That is where the person is going to be trying to fill whatever void that child has, whether that's emotional, whether that's physical, whether that's being a father figure or just somebody to lean on, a friend, whatever hole they have in their life. That's what they want to fill, because they want to be that person who the child comes to. Nobody else understands me like you do. Or they will say, I'm the only one who understands you. I'm the only one who can get you like this. Or you, child, are the only one who gets me. You understand me in a way nobody else does. Shh, we have to keep this quiet because people wouldn't understand this. But, you're so mature for your age. And these are all different kinds of conversations that can be going on and that can be happening at the same time as trying to push boundaries. And it can be sexual, but it'll also be how comfortable are they being alone with you. So that's part of the secrecy, the isolation. They're going to want to carve that kid out alone time. Is that taking him home from baseball practice? Is that being the babysitter for a night? Is that taking them to the park? So somebody, a mom's freed up to do something. Is it just taking the child somewhere because they don't have anywhere to be? They don't want to go home because they get beat there. So the emotional support, the kindness is what they are looking to the perpetrator for and what will be given them. The vast majority, they think about 2/3 of abuse, child abuse, sexual abuse occurs either in the child's own home or in the perpetrator's home. The other section is just kind of, other, somewhere else. Public, not very often. They didn't break down any of the other ones, but majority at your home or somebody else's home. Keep in mind, though, that the child doesn't have to be isolated alone for abuse to happen. I should say alone in the house. They can just be alone in a room. But if they're alone with a perpetrator, if they're alone with an adult who you don't intimately trust with every fiber of your being, there's a potential that something could happen in there. Just because there are other people in the house does not mean that abuse will not happen. So very important to keep in mind, because that's whether it's in your own home or whether that's in the perpetrator's home. They get very good at sealing the child off from the others, whether that's just in a separate room or whether that's in the backyard or, wherever it happens to be. What are some other things we're going to talk about with pushing boundaries? What other things could they be doing? Well, cuddling, snuggling, hugs, extra long hugs, making sure they're full frontal hugs. The touches on the knee, The touches on the knee that or go up to the thigh. Anything that's just kind of a little bit more helping a child change, helping a child get into a costume. Anything where it's going to cause the child to be naked, a bath. If they're naked in front of the perpetrator, they want to normalize that, as well as they want to normalize their nakedness. So you may find that they've got their shirt off. They're cuddling with your kid on the couch. Okay, they're hot. Still, I mean, your bells should just be going off a little bit. Things that we need to look for. Deidre Gore, I'm so sorry. And so you've just proven out what we were talking about. My child-on-child experience was when there were other people in the house as well. I think the mom was there. I think my brother might have been in the basement. Yeah, there were always other kids in the house somewhere. So it was always a risk that we were going to be exposed. And that's one of the things that, can't tell anybody, why we had to be quiet and, secret. Dodger, we love you. So sorry that happened to you. And I hope you know that it's not your fault. Guys, it's never your fault. Never. Because that is the definition of sexual assault, non-consensual. And if you're under 18, it's non-consensual by definition. Doesn't matter if the kid says, yeah, sure. Because they don't know any different. Again, educate your children. They need to have the words to be able to talk to you. Four seems to be an awful common age around here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Deidre. I was 4. I know a number of other people had their first experience at 4. And it just breaks my heart. I wanted to go through, and I think it's so weird that you guys can see me. This was a study. It's actually out of England, but I like the way that they broke down different forms of CSA. So that'd be child sexual assault. And these are the types of things that they were looking at, because I think there's still an image of when you say sexual assault, when you say child sexual assault, you have this vision of it being a penetrative act, or at least of touching of the penis, the vagina, or anally. And why all of those are true and all of those constitute CSA, there's so much more that encompasses it. And when you hear some of these, if you're like, I didn't realize that, please keep in mind that somebody that falls into one category and somebody who falls into another, their traumas are the same. They had different things happen to them, but the trauma that comes out of that, the effects of that trauma are the same and can be of the same level. Now, we've spoken about trauma and the different things that can affect you and why the trauma can be different for two people that go through the exact same thing, because nobody's exactly the same in their lives. We call it trauma comparison. We never do that here, because your trauma is just as important as the next person's. So indecent exposure, being made to watch sexual acts, production or sharing of abusive images or other content, saying sexual things, verbal sexual abuse, participating online in a sexual act or nudity. The standards that we were talking about: kissing, sexual touching, attempted sexual touching, completed touching, then there's trafficking, exchange of goods, whether that's money or food or something for sex. You've got those types of things, which we're talking about in regards to the consent aspect, right? Because we're just totally taking away any consent that they have there. But exhibitionism, the perpetrator is just totally naked, and they've called the child into the room and said, "Hey, come here, I want to show you something." And they're naked, and you're like, what? That's a form of sexual abuse, guys. So we need to expand, I think, our understanding of CSA and our understanding of things that can be potentially psychologically damaging for our kids. Traumatic. I don't say damaging, I'll say psychologically traumatic. And then having to deal with that stuff later on in life. So in order for the kids to be able to talk to us, we have to give them words. And what do we mean by that? Well, they have to know where their boundaries are, what things are off limits. They need to know words for their parts. They need to have words to be able to talk about certain acts. Even if it's just a very young person, you say, if somebody touches you here, or if somebody touches you here, or if somebody takes one of their body parts and touches you somewhere. Giving them just a basic understanding. As they get older, you can expound upon that more. But they need to be able to tell. One of the, this is out of a different study, and it really struck me, the things that people were saying. And one person said the reason she didn't tell is because she said that I think there were some siblings, they tried to tell their mom, but they were really scared to. They didn't know why, but they were just scared. There was just, there's just something about it that, because the kid knows it's not right. But if they don't know that they're not going to be blamed for that, for something happening, then they may second guess. They said they also didn't tell because they didn't have the words to tell. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to tell their mom that they felt weird when this guy did X, Y, or Z. So giving kids the vocabulary and giving them the understanding of what to say is really crucial. Some of the biggest reasons that kids don't come out and say anything, embarrassment is probably the number one that I saw. Potential for humiliation and not being believed. And those kind of round out your top three. Not being believed, and or also having the abuse get worse, or to have something else be worse in their life. Maybe it would be their parents hating them because they've accused the favorite uncle. They're straining relations that way. There's something about the situation that just gives them pause and says, things are going to be worse for me if I let this cat out of the bag. some of the things that some of the kids that had to say is how many of them stated if an adult in their life, if a teacher would have just asked them if something was wrong, that they probably would have disclosed. But it's like nobody cared enough to see why they were always alone, why they didn't have any friends, why they always seemed to be down and depressed, why this one person said that they stayed at school as long as they can, and teachers would say, "What are you doing here?" And she'd say, "I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home." Well, why? I didn't want to go home. I'd stay at school because there was fighting at home. My parents fought like cats and dogs. So if I could avoid that for as long as possible, I would. Can you imagine what it's like then for somebody who's going home and the abuse is occurring at home? They said it just would have taken one adult, some kindness, some caring. But instead, they held on to it for over 30 years and just dealt with it the best they could. Now, some of them sought treatment. And as you hear me say all the time, seeking professional help is the biggest thing that you can do for yourself and your child. Somebody who specializes in sexual assault, child sexual assault, because there are differences between just being a family therapist and knowing what to do, knowing what to say about child sexual assault, particular. Yeah, it's not uncommon. And I feel for that girl who said, if one teacher would have asked me a little bit more, would have just talked to me a little bit, I might have disclosed. And this is true. This is really true. And I was reading some articles about mandatory disclosures, and mandatory reporters and how they feel. There were interviews with them and how they felt about it. At what point did they feel that they needed to report, that all the points had been satisfied? Because you don't want to falsely accuse somebody. Because even if you're not accusing them of it, but you're raising the red flags, that information gets out, it can be very damaging to somebody's reputation. And even if it's proven false, sometimes the rumor mill gets a hold of it, and that it's proven false doesn't always get around. So it's very tricky. I understand that. And I understand that, especially when it's interfamily, people don't want to be accusing people unnecessarily. And that's why I say, one red flag, okay, pay attention. 2 red flags, okay, we might need to step in here. Any more red flags than that, contact needs to be cut off. And that's how I feel. That's my personal opinion on that. But out of everything, in terms of if you have suffered any sexual assault in your past, whether as a child or as an adult or as a repeater, many of us are, got that victim stamp on your forehead, feel like it's burned in an invisible ink that only perpetrators can see, right? Tell somebody. Tell somebody. If that is not a professional therapist and you can't say it out loud yet, write it down. Write it down in your journal. Write it down on a piece of paper, then burn it. But eventually, you need to say it out loud, because saying it out loud means you own it. It also means it's real. I can't tell you the number of times I hear people say, it's like if I didn't say it out loud, it wasn't real, and I could pretend it didn't happen. And so when I say something to somebody, tell somebody, say it out loud, that can be to the wall. It does not need to be to another person. It can be talking to your cat or your dog. But saying those words out loud, you don't have to go through everything that happened to you. But even just saying, I am a survivor. I am a survivor of child sexual assault. I am a survivor of adult sexual assault. This happened to me. But I'm not afraid of it. I'm not running from it. I own it. I was not responsible for it. It is not my fault. And I am taking back any power I gave that perpetrator. And it's all mine now. You cannot hurt me anymore. And I think that goes a long way for healing. When we're able to look at the source of our trauma and take back some of that power that we lost, that helplessness that we felt, does not mean that the effects of the trauma are going to go away like that. Especially if you've been dealing with this lifelong, you've got issues to work through, the effects of the trauma. And for any of you guys who are new, as we are saying, there is the event that causes the trauma. Okay, so this is the sexual assault. That causes trauma. When something like that comes at us, we have a fight, flight, or freeze response. We're going to do one of the three. And not necessarily always the same one, guys, but we're going to do one of the three. And our body is going to remember that. So the next time we have a situation that's really similar to this, that's how we're going to react. And it's in your autonomic system, okay? Your automatic nervous system. So you're going to react before your brain, that logical part of your brain, has a chance to kick in and say, oh, this is just a trigger. I am overreacting a little bit. I'm not in danger. There's nothing here. But you could freak out at just a trigger, even though you said, gosh darn it, next time I said I wasn't going to do that. Well, until you learn to break that cycle of how you automatically respond, it's not going to change. And that's a very difficult thing to do. So we need to be able to break that. And that takes a lot of practice when you're not triggered. That's a whole nother thing that we'll get into. Between the cracks, Jen Marie, so glad you are here. Who all have we been talking about as I have been yabbering on and on and on? Brazy girl, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm glad that you are a survivor. I'm glad that you've taken that mantle and run with it. You know, Donna, you don't have to let go of everything. There's a lot of times there are things that are just so entrenched that we're going to be dealing with them for the rest of our lives. Hopefully, at least we can get to a point where they're not running our lives, where the effects of that trauma are not prohibitive of our daily life. They're not interfering with the things that we need to do to be a successful, healthy human being. And so you may still have those ghosts, but that doesn't mean you're not successfully dealing with it. So give yourself that grace to realize that you can say that you are healthy, that you're healed, when you can function and it is not prohibiting you from having a happy life. Okay? Really important that you guys understand. All right. What else do we have to talk about in regards to any of this? I know that I bopped around a little bit. Here's one. Your kid doesn't want that particular babysitter anymore. Your kid doesn't want to go to grandma's house. Your kid doesn't want to play with that friend anymore. And these are all indicators of, okay, something's changed. What's different? Why don't you want to go there? Well, I just don't like them. Okay, why don't you like them? You need to get specific and you need to understand, because again, this may be their way of skirting around the issue. They don't know how to tell you. They don't want to tell you. And this is where we need to make sure that our kids understand that anything you have to tell me, you're not in trouble for. It's not your fault. I just need to know what's going on. That's all. So recognizing, and we touched on this a little bit before, and these types of things can be with your kids, since we're talking about that specifically, but with your friends as well. Your grandkids' friends, your friends at university, whatever the situation is, as an adult, they're normally like a really happy-go-lucky person, and all of a sudden they seem depressed. They don't want to go out. They're very withdrawn, crying a lot. They're not taking very good care of their appearance or their apartment, or caring about their studies or their job. When any of these types of things start happening, if it's just one, you're like, okay, well, let's talk to you. If they're like, I'm just, just having some trouble sleeping, that's all, it is. But if you start to notice multiples of these, that's what being a friend is. It's poking them and saying, hey, if something's going on, if something happened, you need to talk about it. You need to tell me. And sometimes I found with my friends who I've suspected something of happening, either within the recent past or they're dealing with something that happened in the past, like in their childhood, but it's been dredged up recently, is you can just ask them, were you USA'd? And sometimes they can just shake their head yes, and that's enough. Because somebody else knows. It's okay. But I didn't have to say the words out loud because they weren't ready to. And not everybody is going to be able to initially. Heaven knows I couldn't. And we have to believe. We have to believe the children. You have to believe your friend who comes home and says, yeah, that great guy everyone thinks he is? Yeah, I went on a date with him last night. And guess what happened? We have to believe. Most kids don't tell because they're scared of not being believed. And guess what? The majority of them are not believed the first time they tell, or the second, or the third, or the fourth. To me, that is unconscionable. There is no reason that little Susie is going to accuse Grandpa Joe of touching her underneath her underwear if something didn't happen, either to her or to a sister or a cousin. It's not something that they would just make up. So you have to look at the circumstances. You have to look at, what are they telling you as well? And they estimate that 63, they estimate that at least over half of all reported cases of child sexual abuse are unsubstantiated, meaning they're not going to go anywhere. Child's not going to be removed from the house if it's accused of being intrafamily. Nothing's going to happen. That's another reason kids don't disclose. They don't think anything's going to change. And like I said, things could get worse, right? So then it's up to us as parents, neighbors, to be watching out and making sure that we're keeping that person away from the kids, so that everybody in the house knows that Uncle Joe is not to be here, or Grandpa Joe's not to be here alone with Susie or any of the kids. You got to take precautions. The main reason you love your fur babies is no puberty. I wouldn't exactly say that. My cats are basically at their puberty stage, and they are little shits. I'm just going to tell you straight up. Please, let me reiterate for anybody who is new here, you do not have to talk in the chat. You do not have to share your story. You do not have to identify yourself as a survivor to be here, to lurk, to listen, to participate in the chat. What you choose to reveal is 100% totally personal to you. If you feel you need to tell somebody, you don't have a therapist, if you want to write an email to me, I'd be happy to read it. I'd be happy to speak with you back and forth. We can do private streams like this if you wanted to do something, just kind of face-to-face talking. I'm more than willing to fill that role. And sometimes just doing that initial exposure, it opens the gates for healing. Because you are now saying, it's a problem. It's a problem I have to deal with. You're not going to be able to deal with it all at once. And not everything's going to be fixed by tomorrow. But it does help. It really, really does. I'm catching up with you guys. Oh, Shannon, I cry all the time for no reason, I swear. At least it seems that way. Yeah, Muck, I have seen so many different studies with different numbers. I saw one that said 50. That it's more than 2. This should not happen. Take yourself back. If you were a victim, if you're a survivor of CSA, especially if you're not, take yourself back to then. And imagine telling somebody and not being believed, and telling somebody else and not being believed. At what point do you just, stop telling because Nobody believes me. I certainly would before I've reached 7. I probably would before I reached 5. Well, I know I did when I reached 1, actually. And that's the thing we have to tell our kids. If somebody doesn't believe you, keep telling somebody until they do believe you. And when I say tell our kids, understand I'm saying it to you as in all of our kids, So that's the neighbor, that's the, that's your niece, that's everybody who who's under 18. Making sure that they know this information. And I know it can be tricky when you're talking about neighborhoods, but if you're in one of those neighborhoods where the kids still play outside or they still ride their bikes, if you've got that one house that seems to have all the toys, that one house that they're like, yeah, come on over, especially during the summertime, they're like, yeah, they can all just play in my yard. No worries. I'll give them some lemonade, at the thing. No, not normal. Not going to say that it's necessarily nefarious. Okay. Won't go there. But it's not your normal reaction to a lot of kids in the neighborhood. So again, beware. Take an extra eye out. Talk to your kids a little bit more if they go over there. Speak to any of the other parents. Do you have concerns? Especially if it's something that's in a neighborhood or it's about a coach or somebody where you've got other parents that are involved. Comparing notes can be extremely important because they may have noticed something to do with their child that was different than your child, but both are raising red flags. Or maybe they noticed something in regards to your child going, oh, well, I did see them kind of take them off to the side and they were, sitting with them in the dugout for quite a bit of time after the game. I don't know what was going on there. Just being able to get information, incredibly important. Tara says, question for prevention. I heard you talk about being present for the child and telling them to say something if someone touched them. What other methods are helpful for prevention? I'm going to show you what methods of prevention. Speaking to the child and making sure that they know where their boundaries are, making sure that they have vocabulary, making sure that they know what to look for. If one of their teachers all of a sudden is asking them to stay after school a lot for no reason, and it's getting handsy, tell your kid about that weird little feeling, because they'll get it. That intuition, that guy's just kind of creepy. They may not know what to call it, and they may not know to trust it. So you need to tell them that's something to pay attention to. And if you feel creeped out and in somewhere you don't want to be, then don't, right? Get out of there, get someone to take you home, whatever the situation is, tell somebody. Look up from the screen. Life happens. Yeah, it does. Shannon, thank you so much. I love each and every one of you guys. You make me feel so, it's just so well loved, so cared for. I am honored to be able to provide this space for you guys. And as long as it's useful, I will be doing this. And like I said, if we grow and I can do this every day, I would. I definitely would. one of my crusades. Yes, if you're seeing people you don't recognize, it's because lo and behold, all of the lifeboat comments are feeding over into our comments here, which is lovely because then we don't actually have to have two screens open, which I currently do. So if you see me looking up, I'm looking up at my other screen, making sure that I'm watching everything. Yeah, I've got two screens going. I'm working on my laptop like I normally do, and I have my PC. It's my work PC, guys, but I'm just streaming, so there's no issue. So yes, we've got some new people, at least new to me. Yeah, sometimes it does take a little bit to be able to put on a happy face and be able to face the world. Dodry, I think there's something important with this. You say, I think every parent should let kids know that they're not allowed to have a secret with an adult. I think it's really important. I heard this thing once, and it was about an adult. It was about being an adult, right? And saying, if you feel like you have to do something in secret, you probably shouldn't be doing it. And I've always thought about that in terms of things when I've kept them secret. When have I kept them secret? And except if it's a case of I'm keeping a friend's secret for them, something of that nature, where I certainly would, as an adult, keep their secret. I can say that, yeah, I just, I was kept in secret and I probably shouldn't have been doing it, right? You're keeping a secret from your parents, you're keeping a secret from your spouse or your boyfriend or, whatever it is, because you're cheating on them, you're doing drugs, whatever it is that you're doing that you don't want them to know about. Normally, it's something that you shouldn't be doing. So definitely, I think that that's an important rule that you can set down with your family. One of the first things you taught the grand princess is we do not keep secrets, not for birthday surprises, not for playing games. You don't keep secrets. I think that's an okay thing to say as you're a kid. That's okay, Janet. You're still in the SAS community. We're multitasking, we're simulcasting, we're getting you all from over there. So no worries. Mother's Keeper, so good to see you. If I have not said hi to you, I apologize. SB, I do not know your actual name, so I just call you SB. If you guys don't want to go by your actual name, that is fine. I know some people identify themselves, and if you want to be known as your full name or whatever your full name that you're identifying yourself as, that's okay. If you want to leave it as a handle, that's okay too. Just, we unmask a lot of things here. And so we tend to get raw and expose a lot of our parts. But you only expose what you're comfortable with. And I cannot stress that enough for here. Don't ever feel like you can't join in, you can't watch, you can't talk, you can't offer something because you're not offering something of yourself, something personal. Doesn't work like that. Not here. Okay. So really, really, really critical that you guys understand that from here. I think it's great when you can have siblings watching out for each other. Something I didn't, really have. But it's great when the family can come together like that. Yeah, anytime an adult is asking you to keep a secret, whether it's something that they've told you, something that they've shown you, just the fact that you are alone with them, more than likely, they shouldn't be doing that, meaning the adult. There's no reason to keep that secret. Especially if an adult asks you to keep a secret you need to tell. It's kind of like the opposite, right? And we want our kids to feel safe to tell. So if something does happen, we need to separate them from as much of the effects of it as possible. At least that's how I feel. There's somebody in our lives that I needed to separate things for, but I didn't want it to be a huge deal in my son's life because it had only been some red flags. Okay. So nothing had been done to him at all, but I wanted some separation from this person. But my son didn't need to know why that was all happening. Later on, I was able to explain it, but at the time, he was just too young. And so it can be really touchy when you're at the point of dealing with the red flags. And I don't have a great answer for you. It is going to be based on circumstances. It's going to be based on what has happened and what hasn't happened as to whether or not you need to be going to the authorities at that point, whether you need to be reporting them to the organization head, or whether it's just somebody that you need to cut ties with, or a relative you just need to keep an extra eye on. A lot of different ways of dealing with that. And it's all going to depend on your situation. Did I miss any questions? I'm going to look back. Sassy is great. You're here for it. Yes, this is the SAS community, guys. We are a SAS community. You can thank our own Janet G for that nomer. She said it once and I loved it. I'm scrolling back here just a little bit. I know that I have probably missed conversation that was happening here as I was blabbling on. To anyone who has opened themselves up and has been speaking during the chat as I've just been blabbling on, thank you for sharing. We welcome it here. We welcome you. And we love you. We care for you. And that's why I will always say with my channel, we hear you, we see you, we believe you. Period. Period. I think it's just critical for you guys to feel that you have a happy, safe space to be able to say whatever you need. Midnight Show. Yes, we are all survivors. You are correct. We are all survivors. And, it doesn't even matter if you are not a survivor of SA. We all have our traumas. We all have something that has caused us trauma, whether that was parental neglect, whether it was some emotional abuse, whether we had a near-death experience with a car accident. I mean, there's so many things that create the same traumatic responses as SA that it really is proper to say we are all survivors. We're just survivors of different things. Okay, scrolling back this way, I think I am getting even more lost because I am reading I'm reading chat out of order. It's like trying to read emails the wrong direction. You don't have an idea as to what's really going on. Surviving together. Yes. Shout out to the lifeboat people who can't see you. Yes, Jen Marie is here. I'm sorry, Brittany, this is not something that we're going to be speaking about on here. So you can please keep your comments to yourselves in regards to that. Can we get that taken down, please, Kite? Please, guys. The rumors of your passing have been greatly exaggerated. Yeah, well, I've been trying to tell him you're a real person, but you are so loved. Oh, yeah, I'm going to be on my other's keeper on Tuesday, right? I think that's what we decided. I am going to be speaking about grooming, actually. So this is kind of apropos that we talked about it here. So whatever questions she has for me, whatever context, Kim wants to interview me in, that will be, I don't know what time. 6:30, 7:30, somewhere in there. My other's keeper. Help! I don't know what time. Cheryl Dow, welcome. I don't think I've seen your name before. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, we will we'll let you know. We'll post it here. We'll probably post it on the lifeboat, things like that, and we'll get out what time we're doing that. Oh wow, only an hour and a half. Yeah, unless there's been an overt act, there's nothing that the police are going to act on. However, I think it's important to make a report if there's been some significant evidence of grooming, because I think it adds to, if somebody does report and something has happened, there's going to be information behind that says, listen, we suspected something might be going on with this guy. And not to say, well, we suspected and nobody took it seriously and then something did happen, but it's more of a support of, yeah, this is probably not the first time he did this. There's, he's got a history of behavior. So unfortunately, it's kind of like a PPO, you can ask for one, but nothing's going to be done with it until somebody actually makes an overt act crossing that line. All right. Well, guys, that is actually all I have for today. I had just wanted to put all of the grooming together. Like I said, child on child is going to be next. That may need to be split into two. It just depends on how it breaks down and how much I feel the need to cover separately. So thank you, guys. These lives are only as great as you are. I'm still learning in terms of looking at the chats and being able to, talk and give you guys this information at the same time. So any questions that you guys have that you think of after, please, you can put them in the comments. You can email me. Any suggestions on topics that you want to hear, same deal. Please like and subscribe. Yes, yeah, exactly. This is what I was talking about, Donna. Just having the paperwork helps. It can sometimes go to past behavior. Yep, you're right. That is exactly it. And if we can help out anybody by reporting what we've seen, I think it's helpful. Same deal with reporting something to the school administration or to whoever is the next higher up at the coaching level or whatever. If there's a serious concern, so-and-so went on the retreat and he slept in the tent with the boys, or he had this one boy sleep in the tent with him, or, anything that you just like, we need to be careful about that. Report it to your higher ups. Leave it in their hands, you know. Still keep an eye on it, but make sure that you've just raised the flag so that everyone can see it. I've only briefly touched upon this, Kristen. Good to see you, by the way. I said at the beginning I wanted to have a whole separate on female abusers, because it's not as the numbers aren't as significant, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. And the numbers are going up in terms of the incidences, but I think that also can be explained by just the amount of disclosure, the amount of information that's getting around because of the internet. I think there's, a lot of reasons as to why that can be going up, that it's not necessarily that it's happening more now than it was in the past with females, but it's being discussed more. So I want to do a whole one just on females and dealing with females with children and females as adults, because it's really important that people understand that, yes, females can be perpetrators, and they can be adults of kids. They can be kids on kids. It can be adults on adults. It's any combination thereof. And their tactics sometimes can be a little bit different. I think a little bit more emotionally manipulative than some of the more demonstrative actions that some of the male groomers will have. I think more of what they do. I mean, there is gaslighting, definitely, and there is manipulation of the mind and of what your reality is. But I see it happening so much more with the women perpetrators the cases that I've read. And obviously I haven't read a whole ton of them because there just aren't a whole ton of them out there. But doing what I can in regards to that. So we can have that as a whole separate one. So we've got child on child and a female. I did males survivors, and we'll do female perpetrators as well. Monica, so glad you are here. Welcome from Western Australia. It's always wonderful to see people from across the world. There's an excellent episode of Small Town Dicks about a female perpetrator. It's sad, but an interesting story. Interesting. Yeah, I'll do some more research on it. It's an area that obviously that has not been researched very much in terms of official psychological papers, papers that have been written, serious studies that have been done, because people just, it wasn't something, believe it or not, the numbers of CSAs reported in the early 70s were close to zero. It was so rare. It's not that it didn't happen. It just wasn't talked about. It wasn't reported. That's when I was born, guys. So is it any wonder that 10 years later, when I'm trying to talk about this, that what I had to say was kind of just brushed off? More ostriching than not believing. We're 10 years out of practically no reports. I'd be interested to know the amount of cases that were actually prosecuted back then. No, I did not, Jen. Would you care to come on and discuss it? Because I only know exactly what you have told me, or exactly what I saw on the thumbnail in regards to this. If you would like to come on and talk about it, I will. Otherwise, I will say that Down the Rabbit Hole covered this today. And this is as much as I know. It was caught on film and it was reported to the authorities. And it was biting the ear in a sexual way, I guess. It wasn't a Mike Tyson biting the ear. It wasn't one of those chomps. Yes, yes. Elizabeth Smart, right? They were both a little off the wagon, I think. But it was a couple. The man stole Elizabeth right out of her bedroom. And her younger sister was right there as well. And he was prophet and wife was, whatever you have to say, master type of thing. So I have not read a whole lot in terms of specific details of what happened. I know that she was raped. I know that the female participated in some things, and that's as much as I know. And, all of her details do not need to be, thrown out everywhere. But she's pulled her life together. She's really has pulled her life together. And JC Dugard, who was the other person, I don't know if you guys remember this, it was like within months of each other that JC was found, and then the Elizabeth Smart was found as well. And JC had been held for 18 years, I think it was, and had 2 kids. And she was kept basically as a sexual slave. And the guy was married. As far as I know, the wife never was touching her in a sexual way, but certainly was just supporting her husband in whatever he was doing. So was part of the problem just by being there. There's a documentary called Abducted in Plain Sight. Many podcasts cover this in depth. Yeah, I have read or heard several podcasts in regards to it. And JC Dugard has just been a superstar. She's managed to keep her kids' identities quite private while being very public about exposing stories of abuse and advocating. Mad respect for her. Mad respect. She could have just crawled into a corner and died after this. She took the high road and said, nope, this is not going to define my life. Mad respect. Misha, one of your specialty topics is adoption. Well, I did not know that. I have family that is adopted. All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. It's wonderful. I'm going to make sure that all of my settings are done properly so that the wrenches have all of their abilities for taking down comments or blocking comments. I'm not sure if I've prevented any of you from doing that. So we'll have to see. So if there's anything else that you guys have, please email me, talk to me. We can do private streams. Look forward to seeing you on other casts. I think things that are important to the greater community will be things that I'll simulcast. If they're smaller, more sensitive subjects, if I'm just dealing with one particular thing, I think we might keep it just on surviving together. But any of our other bigger topics that we cover, I will certainly be willing to simulcast this and add some additional times too, as my schedule allows. So any of you have anything final to say, just throw it on up. I'm so glad all of you joined me today. My lives are only as good as you guys make them. And seriously, you're some of the most wonderful people in the community that I could have asked for. So have a great rest of your day, all. All right. I hope it stays nice where you are. It looks like we are going to get some rain. If not today, definitely tomorrow. And it is definitely clouding up over here. So we'll see what we have in store for us here. So hugs and love to all of you. Remember, you're worthy. You're valuable. You're beautiful. You're strong. And you're loved. Always will find that here in the SAS community. So subscribe, and comment, guys. Appreciate it. We are almost at 600 watch hours, believe it or not. 600 watch hours. That is so phenomenal. I am so grateful to all of you who attend these lives and who watch on the replay. It's just wonderful. I can't even tell you. So excited for what's to come. Jen Marie is going to have I think she's going to be posting something on Monday regarding the TTI industry and some background on the TTI industry. My others keeper, somebody's coming on later tonight, right? At 6, I think. Oh, you posted it today. Great. Okay, so on Jen's channel, Between the Cracks, she posted a video that is about the origins of the TTI community. So that should be really interesting. Are you still planning on having a live then on Monday? Jason P., welcome. Did not see you at all. 6 p.m. Mountain. Okay, so 8 p.m. 8 p.m. here. 8 p.m. Eastern. My other's keeper is doing some stuff. And then at 10 Eastern, 10 Eastern, the boat's going on. And supposedly it's going to be game playing night. So if you guys are up for that, if you're up that late, join. Not sure who else is going to be on it, but I guess you'll find out. And Jen says, yep, she's going live on Monday. So she'll still have her live on Monday at 4 p.m., I believe, if she's keeping the same time. And she has records that she has gained, medical records that she has gained from her stay in TTI. As long as it's not mind game. Can't say. I just know games. Which is what we should do here sometime. Yes, troubled teen industry. TTI, for all of you who don't know. Jen is also part of a advocacy group that is doing some wonderful work. If you guys have not seen The Project on Netflix, watch it. It's a great insight as to what a lot of kids in the TTI programs go through. As horrible as that is, it just kind of clues you into what these kids actually go through, to what their parents are fed is going on or is to go on in order to get them to be sent there. A lot of lies going on. A lot of lies. Yep. Weren't we all troubled teens? Yeah, some were just gotten a little more trouble than others, or just because of their circumstances. Counselors, might have recommended that they go to this particular program, maybe a wilderness program, a few weeks out in the wild, and be able to have better, reasoning skills. Definitely not what happened. All right. Well, that's it. So hugs and love, y'all, and have a great rest of your day. and I will see you on some later lives. Bye.